The comments heard on The View From A Pew are those of Mckoy and are not necessarily the opinions of his guests, his producer Garth, any one particular denomination or religion, the church lady, Mr. Lemke, Pastor Craig, or anyone else of sound mind and body. Now, here is today's The View From A Pew, heard all around the world on YouTube. Just search for The View From A Pew.
All right, thank you, Emily, and welcome back. We appreciate you being here today, as well as Garth, my producer, who's making sure this thing sounds good. You know, as radio people, we really don't understand the technical side of this, and I'm just blessed to have Garth because he understands all this stuff and makes sure it all works for me. So, also, thanks for the folks at The Chosen for allowing me to use their music as my music for the show. We appreciate that. And this is going to be probably 8 shows or more with my guests today. And they'll all be on YouTube, and they'll also be on Roku, as well as all of our website, or all of our podcast sites. We've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 4. We've got 27. Garth's got me on 27 podcast sites. So God bless you, Garth, and we appreciate that. So I want to introduce you to a young man by the name of Richard Leiter. Leiter, not an N.
No N.
All right. And we're going to hear his story, which is amazing. I met Richard at a Thanksgiving dinner. No, not Thanksgiving.
No, it was after Thanksgiving.
After Thanksgiving.
The priest.
Yeah, down in Lincoln, and he's a professor of law at University of Nebraska, and that scares me enough right there. But he's got this amazing story, and you've heard about these stories before, where they start out, this Jesus guy, I don't know, is he the real thing or not? I don't know, let's see. And he was raised Jewish, and then at what date, how old were you?
I was, 28.
All right, so at 28 years old,
27?
you decide you're going to prove the Bible wrong.
Yes.
Because you're a smart guy,
Yeah.
and you read it, and Jesus comes and mugs you.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Pulled a fast one on me.
Huh?
Pulled a fast one on me.
Pulled a fast one. I like that.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the story that we're going to do here. And I'm going to divide this show up into like 14-minute segments. So if you want to watch them online after they're live, then you can do so on any of the podcast sites or on Roku or, as Emily says, on YouTube. We're also on there. All you got to do is just look for The View From A Pew. The View From A Pew. And you'll find us there. So, Richard, welcome to Mac's World. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Mac.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me here.
Very excited to do this show. Your priest, pastor, not priest, I'm sorry.
He's a priest.
Priest Theodore,
Yes.
down at the Greek Orthodox.
Right. Annunciation Orthodox Church in Lincoln.
Okay. Introduced you and I together.
Yeah.
And found the story fascinating. In fact, I think when we were sitting there having lunch, I think I probably stopped you at one point and said, I want to hear it live. I don't want to hear in the beginning. So that's what we're going to do today.
Yep.
So, why do you teach law but don't practice law, or do you practice law?
Yeah, well, so it's kind of a long story. I grew up, I graduated from college. I had intended to be a rabbi.
Okay.
And so I was taking religious studies courses. And at the last minute, the Lord sort of had other ideas. I didn't recognize it as a God thing at the time. But after I finished my religious studies degree, I stayed on and did an anthropology of religions major.
Oh,
so I have
okay.
2 BAs. And so when I graduated with a degree in anthropology and one in religious studies, couldn't figure out what I could do for a living. So I ended up volunteering with a group called Volunteers in Asia, and I taught English in Indonesia for a year. So I was in West Sumatra.
Okay.
nation of West Sumatra in the middle of Sumatra, obviously. And when I came back, I decided to the States, I decided I wanted to become a writer. And so I moved to L.A.
Of course.
Yeah, because I was so naive. I just thought that you just show up in L.A. and answer a want ad and start writing.
Yeah, right.
So I quickly learned that I needed to make some money, and so I got a part-time job in a law library. It was a pretty ritzy firm in Century City. We had clients like Herb Alpert, A&M Records.
Oh, my.
Barry Gordy was a client.
Well, Century
Groucho
City
Marx.
is the home of Columbia Records. Is that
Yeah,
that brown
there's
building?
all this. Yeah, that's over in Hollywood.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But anyway, so I walked into this law firm for a part-time job in order to pay rent, and I found that it just resonated with me. I loved working in a library. I was the outside researcher, so I was driving all around LA visiting different libraries. This was 1978,
Okay.
77, 1978. And decided that I wanted to make a career of being a law librarian. So I went to law school in LA,
Yeah.
Southwestern University. It was also around that time that I met my wife.
Were you guys hippies?
I was pretty much a hippie, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the 70s.
Yeah.
So I met my wife at the law firm, and I guess this is a fascinating part of the story. At the time, I was exploring everything, a little Buddhism, a little Est. Do you remember the Est training with Werner Erhard?
No,
I
I'm
was
sorry.
into anything spiritual. I was a seeker, true seeker.
Okay.
And so I was praying, chanting to Buddha for a wife. The Nichiren Shoshu Buddhism, I was dabbling within it there a little bit. And that's when I met Wendy, my wife.
And did she work at the law firm?
She worked at the law firm as a secretary, so it was office romance, sort of.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You gotta
it was-
keep that off the records.
Yeah, and so...
Boy, in today's world, you couldn't do that.
Yeah, right. So as we were considering getting married, we actually had this conversation. We said, we're going to have a family. We need to have a reputable, authentic religion. Just chanting to Buddha or, just seems like socially not acceptable, especially in our family. So we decided, let's be Jewish. And so I was raised Jewish, and I had a pretty solid foundation in being a faithful, active Jew, Reformed Jew in California. So Wendy converted to Judaism so
Okay.
that my rabbi that I grew up with could marry us.
Yeah. Now, you just said something I want to ask a question about. You said, what did you call the Judaism?
Reformed.
Reformed.
Yeah.
What is a Reformed Jew?
So Reformed Jews are very assimilated. They are not very faithful to kosher laws. They don't
Okay.
feel that it was as important. But Reformed Jews were more modern and
Okay.
were more willing to take the Bible as metaphor and analogy.
But it wasn't the Masonic. You weren't a Masonic Jew.
No,
Messianic, sorry.
Messianic. No,
No.
far from it.
So
We were-
Jesus wasn't in your life.
Not a bit. In fact, so if you think about it, so I was born in 1952. You called me a young man. I thank you for that.
You're very
That was
welcome.
a stretch.
You look younger than I am.
But so 1952, that was less than 10 years after World War II was over.
Oh, yeah.
And so Jews
Yeah.
all over the country were still kind of in shock
Yeah.
to what was happening. And so I was raised in a community in Northern California, San Jose generally. There weren't a lot of Jews, but we all came together in the synagogue. And so we identified very strongly, passionately as Jewish. But when I went to school, we had Christmas programs, and
right.
all of my friends were not Jews. Only my relatives were the only Jews that I knew. So I grew up, and I was taught, be friends with Christians, but you can't trust them all the way.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, think about it. Kristallnacht was only 10 years earlier, when people woke up one day and suddenly their neighbors were turning them in. So that was always in the back of my mind. Be friends with Jews, or with Christians or Gentiles, but don't trust them too much. You never know when they're going to turn on you.
And when they turned on you, how would they turn on you?
Well, it would come up in a lot of different ways. My dad, for example, he was a pharmacist. He went to USC pharmacy school. And at the time, there were only 2 slots for Jews. So he didn't make it the first time, so he had to wait a year. And those kind of things were just accepted. No Jewish members at the Olympic Club in San Francisco. There was, and that was just a given. And but we realized we were doing okay. I was very popular in my school, and I had a band. I was president of my junior high school, and so, and everybody knew I was Jewish, and they just thought I was kind of peculiar, and I didn't celebrate Christmas, and people would ask why. But the distrust that I was talking about was if a Gentile decided, was really put to the test, it had to choose between their faith and Judaism, they would turn you in.
See, I just, and we'll have to talk about this at some point during the show. I just have never understood why there is this, what's it called? Some
anti-Semitism?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't understand that.
I don't either.
I don't. I lived in Des Moines for a long time, and we had a country club that was only Jewish.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't let them go to the other one, which
Right.
I just goes over my head. All right.
Yeah.
All right, we were going to continue this conversation probably in 8 parts, and each one of them will be posted on our website, Mckoy.com. It will be on Facebook on several channels. It'll also be on Roku, and it'll be on YouTube. So you can hear this as much as you like and as often as you want. And always I want feedback. And I like negative feedback. I know that sounds weird, but I learn more from when people don't like what I'm doing rather than what I'm doing. So we would appreciate you getting a hold of us that way. And it's Mac at theviewfromapew.com. Mac, M-A-C, like macaroni, at theviewfromapew.com. We want to thank our folks at DivineTruthChristian.com. Great place to order for Christmas presents. And remember, let's keep Jesus in Christmas.
Divine Truth Christian Store, where you'll find more.